Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Boom Broadcasting presents Three from Deep. I'm your host, Jason Colenso. Welcome to the show. How's everybody doing today? Happy Saturday. We're here for the weekend. NBA starting back up. Second half of the season. Very excited. Let's see what we got on tap for today. But first of all, guys, Boom Broadcasting, the YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. We're striving for that 500 subscribers now. We're really close. We can use your help. Get your friends, get your neighbors, go start pounding on doors, send some requests through your Facebook, through your Instagram. Let's see if we can get us to 500 and beyond, guys. I appreciate it, and I do appreciate all the love and support for me, so thank you guys very much. Today we're going to put the nail in the coffin of the All-Star game. We've got a few things to talk about, just kind of get that over with. I know it was last weekend, but we got a few other things we want to kind of discuss on that here. So we'll do that. Then the Lake Show. We'll talk about the Lakers a little bit. Luka Doncic. I know we haven't talked a lot about that this week because, of course, they haven't been playing. Luka hasn't been playing. He did play Wednesday night, had a little bit of a game, even though they lost. But we'll talk about the Lake Show here today. We got a special top 5. We'll discuss that here in a little while. And then my favorite thing we're going to talk about today, the face of the NBA. This has been a hot topic all around right now, coming off the All-Star break, and some of the questions and some of the responses that certain younger stars have been making in the NBA. So we're going to do a face-off and talk about why no one wants to be the face of the NBA anymore. Very interesting. And again, guys, I say we, because I am not alone again. I have brought on my friend, Mr. Cody Johnson from Drew Code Sports Talk. Hey, Cody, how you doing today?
I'm good, Jason, man. How you doing, bud?
Fantastic, man. I appreciate you being here with me, talking some NBA. I'm very excited, and I am excited to have you on here, man. This is awesome.
It's always a pleasure to get an invite from you, Jason. I was very excited when you asked me to come back on, and I'm here and got dressed up for the occasion because you did it for my show, and I told you I'd get you back, so I'm here for you, man.
I like it. Suited and booted, man. You look great, dude. I appreciate it. So, yeah, let's jump on in this, man. So, Cody, I'm gonna throw you some questions here because I want to get your perspective on things. I know I've been talking a little bit last couple episodes about this All-Star game. Everybody's still kind of talking about it. Unfortunately, they're not really talking about the gameplay of it or anything exciting about the All-Star game. It's kind of a lot of the drama that came along with it. The stop and start play, LeBron James, the last minute sit down, some of those negative things. From what you saw over this weekend, what positives can you bring out from this All-Star weekend? And what did you see that kind of made you excited about the NBA for the second half of the season?
Wow, that's a really hard question to kick off with because I would argue that we probably just witnessed the worst All-Star game in the last 20 years. And I say like the All-Star games, I would say from 21 on have not been the greatest. And this was probably rock bottom. And I would say if there's a positive I can bring out of that is because we have finally hit rock bottom, maybe we go back to the drawing board and get back to basics and come up with ideas of like how to bring it competitive again. Who can we collaborate with in terms of active players who are going to be willing to participate? I'm very excited for the rest of the season in general. But I'm very curious to see how the NBA, Adam Silver, respond to arguably the worst All-Star game, as I mentioned before. I think one of the things that the NBA saw that didn't work was this stop and start play. And I don't think the NBA players really liked it either, because ironically enough, some of the games that the NBA players played in, because it was kind of more like a tournament style in this respect, they were actually kind of relatively more competitive than normal. And maybe that's because it was shorter play, or maybe it was because there are now like squads going against one of those. So maybe there's a little bit more of a team camaraderie kind of a thing. But I think at the end of the day, like it was kind of bad because for as well as they played, they didn't play a lot of time to showcase that. And I think again, one of the things we can take away from is because it's the worst, we can now only go up from here. And I think now that's some positives because there's no way the NBA is going to do this again. And I think we go back to the drawing board. We go back to basics because, when NHL is outperforming you during their All-Star weekend, and now granted they had a completely unique setup, it's really hard for the NBA to just now rest on, well, we're the global brand. Sure, but like you put out a really bad product on a pivotal weekend that you have had stapled in February for many years. So now what are you going to do to respond to that?
And that's a great point. And that's one of the things I think that really made this look even worse is what the NHL did with that 4-tournament world event that they did. And of course, USA and Canada fighting each other. There's some political stuff to go behind that also. So that added to the drama.
Right.
Do you really think that added just more negativity to the NBA and that All-Star weekend? Is it one of those things like, okay, the NHL got it right. They hit it out of the park. They knew that their All-Star game and All-Star weekend was kind of going weak. They tried something unique and they crushed it. This tournament was amazing. Do you think that really hurt the NBA and made it look worse than it really was?
I think NHL, and I'm going to be completely honest, they got lucky, if I'm being honest. And I don't mean to say that the NHL is not a great league. If I'm being honest, I'm not a hockey fan. It's not that I don't watch the sport or don't like it. I don't watch it. I'm in California. Hockey's not our sport. But I've seen hockey. I've gone to hockey games. They're a ton of fun. And it's a very physical sport. I would never say that basketball is better than hockey because of XYZ. Two different sports, not really comparable. But I think what the NHL did is they took 4 regions of, different countries, US, Canada, notably, and some other ones, where they are focal pointed of like what's helped grow the game. And so they turned it into a tournament style to be competitive within one another. But what makes that tough is because the NBA is not necessarily like there's 4 countries that condense the NBA. It's several countries, and the NBA is a global brand. So you would have, international players, and then you would have NBA players. And if we're being honest, if that was the card, that might look a little different. There's still relatively only 2 teams that would go head to head, whereas NHL had 4 respective teams that they were able to cut out. So I think, and again, why I say NHL was lucky is because they don't know if that was going to turn out well. No. It just so happened to because, and I don't even think politically, I just think when you put people on sides of representing your homeland, people's pride in their homeland come out, whether that's Canada, America, another European country, or Mexico, just for the sake of the conversation. Anywhere you go, they're going to have pride in where they come from. Whereas the NBA, they're representing themselves and the team, but there is no pride aspect unless they're playing on FIFA or USA Basketball.
Right.
Then we see them get extremely competitive. But I will say, though, NBA is also one of the leagues, too, that creatively changed their all-star game, picking the captains, which I actually like that idea. I think it's kind of cool when, you have 2 captains of your East and your West, and you can pick any player from either conference, because then you get matchups of Klay Thompson versus Steph Curry, or Jaylen Brown versus Jason Tatum. That's entertaining, because if they were on the same team, they would never have that one-on-one battle. So that's kind of a neat idea. And also the NBA came up with it was the year that Kobe Bryant passed away, where they came up with every quarter resets the score, and then you have a final score at the end to achieve. And that was probably one of the more fun All-Star games that we've seen in a long time, because they actually remain competitive in that spirit. And that wouldn't have happened unless the NBA was bold enough to change that and go out on a limb to see if it'll work. And I think the NHL, they made the first year was great. Now, will it hit again the second year? We don't know. But what we can arguably say is that the NHL got luckier, so to speak, than the NBA, because they both changed their formats this year, but one focused in on the pride of where you come from, and the other one tried to manufacture that, but took that away because of all the unbasketball related stuff, like the impromptu comedy show that Kevin Hart put on, you know, the Mr. Beast half court shot, which was great, but that was something new that All-Star game doesn't normally have. And so players have already said, you know, when you have long pauses, it's hard for us to get warmed up again. Okay, we hear you. So we're going to now add 15 more stoppages rather than, okay, let's take out those stoppages so we treat it like a normal game. So I think NHL just pointed out that like they were able to hit a competitive fire that the NBA just can't do. But, and we'll talk about this later too, it's just also too the pride of that league and of that area compared to like the NBA's pride, which is in dire questionability right now.
Right. One of the biggest things that I missed, and just my perspective on it to lighten it, to finish it up, is I missed the coaching aspect, because I remember when you had coaches, actual coaches on the sideline, and I talked about this in one of my other episodes, is like there's a ton of coaches out there that didn't get any kind of all-star love. I mean, you talk about Missoula, who just won, you know, a championship. You know, there's just a Doc Rivers who was ready to get fired, who has the Bucks playing well right now. It's like if you had 2 or 3 of those coaches, Kenny Atkinson, look what he's doing with the Cavs. His first year as a Cavs coach, like there was not a lot of that during an All-Star game. It's like, okay, did a lot of focusing on the players, but we didn't have any coaching aspect there. It was just missing a lot for me. And I think the addition of watching hockey players like essentially beat the heck out of each other for themselves and their country and playing hard, I think that's really what hurt the NBA, is because now you're watching an exhibition where these guys are playing a physical sport and they're playing as hard as they can, whereas you're playing basketball, still granted a physical sport, but there's no fighting, there's no checking, you know, but you're not playing as hard. So these guys are outshining you. So just all of that, it was the perfect storm. The NHL hit it out of the park. Will it happen again next year? Will we have that same kind of political undertone to kind of help build it up? I'm not sure, but we can all agree that the NBA definitely needs some help with the All-Star game. So
yeah,
I appreciate that. I appreciate the feedback on that too, because it was rough. It was rough watching it here, you know, especially since, you know, we love the NBA so much. It's kind of hard to watch things like that. And I hate to see it go the way of the Pro Bowl, like the NFL has done, where essentially it's just, you're just an honorary, hey, we're going to name you to the Pro Bowl, even though we're not going to really do it, or they do the flag football thing now. So a little bit different. So, but let's jump into something that I know is close to your heart. We're going to get into the Lake Show a little bit. Coming off the All-Star break, they had the makeup game against Charlotte. The Lakers played the Charlotte Hornets in a loss. Luka had 14, 11, and 8, which is respectable, still trying to get his legs. LeBron, 26, 7, and 11 assists. So LeBron at 40, still doing amazing things. I got to get me one of them hyperbaric chambers because it's hard to get out of bed in the morning. But still lost the game. So a little inconsistent. They did come back and bounce back and beat Portland the other night. LeBron drops 40. Luka doesn't even play in a win. Austin Reeves dropped 32. So right now, Lakers sitting in that 5th spot in the West. Do you think that the Lakers have enough firepower now to at least make some noise in the playoffs, or are they going to be an easy out for somebody? Or is this going to be kind of, all right, we got to do something next year?
So here's what's difficult is, I mean, it's hard to measure what the Lakers can do the rest of the season when Luka, you know, when Luka's in the lineup, the Lakers are 1-2. So, you know, out of 3 games, they've only won that one game, I think, in Utah, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And then they lost poorly to the Hornets, which is a bad loss because they're a bad team. You should take care of them at home nonetheless.
Right.
But then you go on to Portland, to your credit, and, you know, LeBron James has to drop 40 and then eke out on that game. But I think what makes it difficult is when this trade happened with Luka going to the Lakers, we knew that the Lakers respectively probably were going to take a step back. because you lose AD, you lose size, you lose a lot of defense, which is, what the Lakers like main power was their ability to defend the interior. Now you lose that. So now you're really just trying to outscore everybody. But what's difficult is because Luka just hasn't found his legs yet, and he just hasn't found his confidence in shooting quite yet because he's still working into game shape. There's going to be a lot of games where like this doesn't look like Luka, the sky is falling. And when this trade happened, I said that the Lakers, if they're the 4th or the 5th seed, I see them now as, respectively a 6th seed, maybe even a 7th seed. But I think holding tight to that 6th seed because they lost so much with losing AD, and you're asking the Lakers in the middle of the season to put a generational superstar in with LeBron and figure it out on the fly, rather than an offseason trade where you can get all this worked out during training camp and then work it out through a full season. So do I think the Lakers can make noise in the playoffs? Yeah, I think
Oh, shit. I'm sorry, I lost you.
No, it's all right. I think depending on the matchup, the Lakers could very much surprise like a team like the Rockets. They could surprise a team like the Memphis Grizzlies just because, they're inexperienced compared to the Lakers when it comes to the playoffs. And in the playoffs, like when you grind it out, that more fits the game. And that's what the Lakers are going to want to do, not play all this run and gun because they don't really have, the legs to do so respectively. So I think the Lakers could probably get to like the second round and maybe lose in like a 6-game series to the better team. I don't know if they're a Western Conference final type of team quite yet. I need to see how this offense kind of looks with Luka and with LeBron once they're kind of like full speed. Because even though we signed Alex Lynn, I'm still curious like what we're going to do big men wise. Because are we going to trust Jackson Hayes? We're really just, rotating these big guys in for fouls more or less. And then to be truthful, and I said this too, and when you invited me on the show the first time, I said the Lakers are probably going to look to be better next year when they're building more around Luka than they are LeBron, because then Luka might feel more comfortable, and this might be a next year kind of thing. And I think the Lakers are aware of that. I think they're trying to see how lucky they can get the rest of the season, but come next season, they're expecting to be more potent because now you've got, LeBron James and Luka, generational superstar, on the same team. Sky's the limit to what they can do, especially with the players that they can put around them. Keeping Reeves, keeping Dalton Connect, having a bunch of these young,
which I think was huge.
Yes,
they got lucky. They were able to. I thought that was a mistake trading away Connect. But
well, I have a hunch that the Lakers failed him to reverse it. I think they got buyer's remorse because I do not, after all that kind of came out and giving up Dalton for, a young kid like Mark Williams, it just seemed like, I don't know about that. And so to keep Dalton is great, but it does leave us a little vulnerable on the interior side. So we'll see. But ultimately, I think the Lakers are probably a next year kind of team. Are they a playoff team? 100%. But I think they are a team that could get got pretty quickly because of the defense that they lack. And again, they're trying to get this team makeshift in the middle of the season, or not even the middle of the season. We're in the last third of the season. We have less than 30 games to go before it's all said and done.
Right. Now, do you see now if the Lakers start limping into the playoffs and you have kind of your future now, he's been injured. He's supposedly out of shape. We got fat Luka now. It's like fat Elvis here. We're back in the 70s. Can you see a situation where the Lakers are like, okay, well, we're not going to really make any noise. We're probably going to maybe play the Nuggets, or we're going to play like a hard team that's going to kill us anyways. Do we shut him down so he doesn't get any injury? I mean, can you see that kind of scenario for the Lakers?
Only if Luka re-injures himself. I think even if the Lakers are sitting at 6, maybe they're, fighting for a 6 seed, or maybe they fall into the 7th seed with a play-in. I think when you have LeBron and you have him at 40 years of age, and who knows, there's rumors that he might re-sign and come back next year. Luka may not be back next year. I don't think that you can be cautious just because, you gave up your all-NBA center to get Luka to build around, but you have real no commitment. So you also need to prove to Luka that you guys are going to be competitive, and shutting him down just because of we don't want to re-injure you and for your safety may send the signal of we're more cautious than competitive, and that might rub Luka the wrong way. That might rub LeBron the wrong way. Right. But again, though, if it is like a season thing, Luka has seriously injured his calf again, or it's an Achilles now injury where like, okay, we really got to be cautious. I can see that because that would make sense. But then we put ourselves at risk of Luka may not resign, which is still on the table. Like, we don't even know if he's going to commit to the Lakers. So, right. I think like if everyone is healthy or at least like is good enough to play, I think everyone still goes. You don't sit anybody. I mean, you try to rest along the way, but there's no way like when it comes up to like when you're needed the most, okay, we're going to set you Luka because this first round matchup doesn't matter. Right. No, every game is going to matter up until you're locked into the playoffs, just because you also want to prove to Luka you're a competitive team.
I can see it's going to be interesting to see the rest of the season. That's definitely a storyline to look at because it's hard to not look into next year because do you spend $50+ million on a LeBron James, bringing him back to the team, considering that might be his last year? So you got an aging 41-year-old superstar, or do you take that money and go find somebody else? So I think the Lakers have a lot of extra decisions to make. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of play that the rest of the season here. So I'm sure this is not going to be the last time we're going to be talking about Luka Lakers. So
I hope not.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope not either, man, because it definitely makes for great talk and great TV. So
yeah.
So we're going to take a quick time out here, Mr. Code. Mm-hmm. One of my things I love to do, as you well know, is we like to do our top 5 here. I always try to come up with something crazy and kitschy and interesting. So I sent you this earlier. I have a little bit of a sweet tooth. I try to stay away from it, but ultimately I can't, especially coming out of the holidays. It's hard to stay away from sweets.
I hear that.
But I started thinking, I'm like, man, what do I like in my candies? I like to a little bit here, a little bit there. So I want to know what your top 5 go-to candies are with that sweet tooth. Do you have 5 that you that you like a comfort food? You have a comfort candy?
Yeah. So, okay. My number 5, I'll go 5-1 just because I think everyone's number 1 should be universal. So we'll see. But number 5 for me, I would lead off with Butterfingers, but here's the thing though. I can't have Butterfingers randomly at home. I have to have them at the movie theaters because I grew up where when we would go to the movies, and actually in the city I live in currently, I don't live very far from where I grew up, and there's a movie theater that we used to call the $3 movie theater. And for $3 you can see any movie that's there, but the movies were always like, 4 months old, right, and they're not playing at the main theaters anymore. It's kind of like, if you missed it going to this one, you can catch it here and it's only $3. So they would always be sold out because it's inexpensive tickets. And every time we would go, I've seen almost every movie you can think of, and I would get buttered popcorn, extra butter, because that's the only way to eat it, and Butterfingers. That was my go-to thing. And I don't know what it is, but I can only enjoy Butterfingers at the movie theater. Maybe it's nostalgia, but that's what one of my favorite chocolate kind of candies is, Butterfingers, and doing it with movie butter popcorn is the only way to do it for me.
Cool.
All right. And then number 4, this is maybe an old person thing, because I had a lot of these growing up at my grandparents' house, but Werther's Original Caramel Hard Candy. I still to this day will buy a bag. I have some in my office, and then you never know, just grab one and just stick it right in there and just, kind of just savor it a little bit throughout the day, especially on those lunch breaks that you can't get. You get a little sweetness in there. So I love their Werther's Originals. Jolly Ranchers is another one. As you can tell, there's a theme. Something that I can savor is something I'm a fan of. Gotcha. So Jolly Ranchers as a kid growing up was fun. And now we get into the fun part. My number 2, Snickers. Snickers is one of my all-time favorite candies. I'm not a fan of them altering it with almonds and all that stuff. I like the good old original one. That's my favorite one. That's what I ate a lot growing up. And then number 1, it should be universal to everybody. There's no dispute on this. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, hands down the best candy. And I will die on that hill because any variation of it, whether it's pieces, minis, in cereal, in protein powder, you name it, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. That's it. That's in game. Stop.
Gotcha. I like it. All right. I'll give you mine here real quick. My number 5, I like the nonpareils. I don't know if you know what a nonpareil is.
Yes,
the
sir.
Little chocolate with the little white sprinkles on the top.
Yep.
I like the big ones. I like the little ones. That was my movie theater go-to.
There you go.
Because if I eat a Butterfinger, I got to do it at home because the Butterfinger always stuck to
Yeah.
the roof of your
That was
mouth.
the thing is you got to go to your
teeth.
You got to go to the dentist afterwards. You got to floss. Yes, I remember that.
Like it was crazy. But I love me some nonpareils because you can just kind of sit there and eat them. I love the good old-fashioned Hershey bar.
Okay.
It's just universal. You want a little piece of chocolate. I like that you can break it into little squares so you don't have to feel like, you don't have to feel too guilty eating a whole chocolate bar. You can just break off some of the little squares.
Right.
I don't know why. I still like it, and I still break off the little squares. My number 3, it's a weird one, but I love the little dinner mints. The little dinner mints that look like little Hershey's Kisses. They come in like the different colors with the white sprinkles on them. Just the minty. They're small. They kind of crunch a little bit. I don't know why. I can eat a bag of those at a time. I had them during my wedding. We had them in little bags. I almost ate every one of them during my wedding. So now my number 2 is your number 1. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. I love them. I love them when they're melted. I love throwing them in the freezer, get them nice and cold, and then eating them in the freezer. And yes, the original peanut butter cup, no different flavors and colors and all this other stuff. I like crunching them up and putting them on my ice cream.
Yep. Perfect way to do it.
My number 1, and it's always been my number 1, even when I was a little kid. Back in the day when Costco first opened up, I used to go with my mom, and I would get the 5-pound bags of gummy bears.
Yeah.
And to this day, I can pound gummy bears like nobody's business. And again, I like to take them and throw them in the freezer because, like, you get them nice and cold.
Yeah.
Like and you could kind of, don't want to say chew on them and suck on them a little bit, kind of like hard candy. Not that I'm saying that you can soak them a little bit too, and maybe some gin and chew on them. It kind of helps with that too. But my number 1, I love gummy bears.
Yeah.
They're just my staple because when I was a kid, I'd eat them like crazy. So that's my number 1.
So first off, gummy bears, I agree. I think they're an honorable mention for me because when I think candy, I think chocolate, but gummy bears have a special place in my heart because they're like one of like the funnest things that you get to eat, chop the head off, whatever. Now, let me ask you, what's your position on gummy worms?
Oh, now there's certain ones I like. I'm not big on the sour because I don't need my eyeballs crunching in me, and I'm not big on like the Sour Patch Kids and the sour ones. Now, I don't mind the gummy worms I don't know if you've ever had dirt cake before.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, the pudding and everything make it look like dirt, and they got worms in it sometimes. I don't mind it in there, but it's not the same texture, and it's something different about it. The gummy bears, the Harborough, or how I can't remember how you say Harborough, the old school where you put them together, and those are the ones I stick with. So
I like it.
Anything else does not compare. Not the Swedish fish. I think those things taste real weird. Some of the other stuff have a plastic flavor. Those gummy bears, boom, love them.
I agree. And what's funny is my kids, ironically enough, I'm more into like a chocolatey sweet taste. Like that's my preferred candy. My kids, though, want it as sour can get. Like the more sour, the better. My youngest one, she's obsessed with what is it? The Sour Patch Kids and every variation, sour Airheads, you name it, sour. She's obsessed with it. And I can't do it. Now, also, some good candy that I've come across is some chamoy green apple suckers. Those are also really good because they got that nice little like lemon kind of heat and then that sweetness with that green apple sucker. Those are also a hit.
Have to check that out. So we'll appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing with me, man. Now I want some candy, but
yeah, right.
I try to stay away from that. I'll get a little tight in the vestibule here. So so now we're going to jump into the portion which I've really been looking for. This conversation I want to have with you. It's the really hot topic right now in the NBA. And really it's transitioning over to a lot of the different sports. Anthony Edwards, kind of one of the young superstars. Everybody wants him to be kind of a face of the NBA right now. And I think you could probably agree, and most of the people watching could probably agree that right now the face of the NBA is LeBron James and Steph Curry. I think even if you don't know the NBA, you know who those guys are just because they're everywhere. They're on different TV shows. They're talked about. I think that's the face of the NBA. And the NBA is always looking for that next face.
Mhm.
They had Jordan, they had Kobe, then now they have LeBron, Steph Curry. So they're looking, those guys are kind of on their way out. NBA is looking for the next. And this quote from Anthony Edwards kind of got a lot of people shook. And I'm going to read it here. So, and I got my paper here because I want to make sure I'm reading this right. Because he was asked about being the face of the NBA. He said, "I'm capable of being that guy, but I don't want to be that guy. Put it like that. I want to be the guy to just show up and hoop and just kill dudes and go home." That's got everybody going crazy right now. And then also to add insult to injury, one of the faces of the NBA with Victor Wembanyama, a.k.a. the Parisian Pillar. I'm still trying to get that nickname out there because he does need a better nickname than just Wemby.
Yep.
Is now out with the thrombosis, the blood clot in his shoulder. Mm-hmm. So we wish him well, but they shut him down for the season. So you talk about a huge hit to the NBA. Not only the Spurs in that team, which I had them as a dark horse, especially adding De'Aaron Fox. Right. But with Wemby out, you talked about a face that the world recognizes, and that the NBA was trying to sell to the world because, of course, they went over to Paris with him. So what are your thoughts on this younger squad of guys not really wanting to take that mantle? You look at somebody like Anthony Edwards making that comment, John Morant and some of the issues he had off the court, Luka not really doing a lot of things out there, whether it be because he's from a different country, doesn't really know us here in the States, and you don't see him on TV shows and doing a lot of the off-court things, pretty quiet. What are your thoughts about this new generation not wanting to take the mantle? You got a lot of great superstars out there, and nobody really wants to do it. They just want to hoop and go home.
I think what's difficult about this conversation is because we named off and we'll start it all the way back to Magic and Bird basically elevating the NBA out of the dark ages to where it's live taping. Then you have, MJ that comes in, saves it in the 90s, Kobe, Shaq with the Lakers, and, again, a bunch of other great players and personalities like Allen Iverson, even Ray Allen and KG to some respects. And then, in 2003, we get LeBron for now 20 plus years. Here's what I think is difficult. Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, even LeBron James in some respect, Kobe Bryant. There wasn't really the age of social media that every single day you would get criticized by some random person. For example, you and I, Jason, or fill in the blank of whatever. Every single day, sports media is at the height of its powers because of the personalities, the debate shows, and the talk shows. So my perspective on why Anthony Edwards, and I'll speak to this and then go back and backtrack a little bit to explain it on a larger scale. I think the reason why a player like Anthony Edwards is doesn't want the responsibility of being the face of the league is because the pressures that come with it to be perfect, to, hate your opponent, to, know exactly what to say, to elevate your team, even though he really doesn't have any control over, who his franchise is bringing in. And right now, ironically enough, his franchise, they still don't even have a legit owner because they're in this weird legal battle, even with the ownership group. So, in Anthony Edwards' perspective, one of his closest friends is Kevin Durant, who gets bashed a lot because we don't know if he's in the top 10 all time. He's a bus rider. He doesn't drive the bus, all these other things that kind of just show Kevin Durant's one of the face of the leagues, and look at the treatment that he gets. Kyrie Irving's one of the faces of the leagues. Look at the treatment he gets. So I think Anthony Edwards himself, and I'll give this example, is he sees that and says, I don't want to be criticized for what I do or don't do correctly. I just want to play basketball, be competitive, win, and go home, which I think is respectable. And I think the age of social media has taken the joy out of being competitive because, we criticize LeBron for being friendly with everybody because Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan were never really friends with their peers until they left the game. But again, like in social media and this age, like they also never had the heat that they had back when they played at the height of their powers. Like, remember when Kobe Bryant had legal issues? I want to say it was like 2006 or 7.
Yeah, Denver incident, yes.
The Denver incident. And remember, that was a huge news cycle for ESPN back then. It played out into the playoffs, but it never continued to go because at the time, there wasn't really social media. There wasn't Twitter. There wasn't Facebook. There wasn't Instagram that really pushes it. And in nowadays time with social media, people and young fans, because the NBA's demographic is extremely young peers and kids, they want action immediately. They want it now. And with what LeBron and Stephen Curry have done, they've changed the game, made it better. But what we miss is that competitive fire that each player has, which they just aren't carrying from generations and generations. And in my perspective, because of that, what I think is going to happen is, or I think what the NBA should do, is they shouldn't rely on an American face to be the face of the NBA. Basketball is an international sport now. In fact, I can make the argument that there's better international players than American-born NBA players today. And that's why, I like Giannis's idea about having an international competition going against the NBA players. But let's all be honest. The international team would wipe the floor with the NBA players because the international players just have more players, more talented players at the point, like Luka, SGA, Giannis, Wemby, Jokic. Those are foreign-born players. And then Anthony Edwards is one that we'll throw in there as an American-born. Then you got Kevin Durant. Oh, past his prime. Jason Tatum. No one really likes Jason Tatum because his game, for whatever reason.
Right.
I think the NBA's face problem is because a lot of scrutiny that comes with being the face of the league is what people don't want. But what the NBA should do is embrace the international side, allow Giannis, allow Jokic, fill in the international player that audiences gravitate towards, because that's what's the natural thing. This whole thing about Anthony Edwards has to be thrusted into being the face because he's American, young, and he's a great basketball player. It's just not going to happen anymore. He doesn't even want it. And I think Charles Barkley, yesterday had a great point. He goes, the fact that we're asking and he's being asked, or players just aren't taking it, that's the problem. Someone's not going out there and taking it.
Well, one of my biggest issues with it is a lot of these guys want to be paid like a superstar, but not be a superstar. See, one of those things that comes along with being a superstar is the scrutiny. Yes, there was no social media, but Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, all those guys, even before social media, were scrutinized. Granted, it was in the newspaper. It took a little longer to get to them, but they were still scrutinized. They still had their haters. But if you sign a max contract, $300 million, it is ignorant to think that you don't expect those things to come with it. You don't expect the baggage to come with it. Don't sign that contract if you don't want to be a superstar. That's one of the things that I think a lot of people kind of are mad about too. And I saw PK Subban on SportsCenter the other day was talking about, the NHL games and the NBA All-Star game, and had a great point where you saw how the hockey players were playing with heart and they don't get paid as much money, whereas the NBA guys get paid so much money, but there's no effort there. If you sign a max contract and you make 50, 60, $70 million a year, you better be prepared to be scrutinized because that comes along with it. That's the keys to the car. All right. So you can't have a Ferrari and not expect to pay a lot of money in gas. The gas is not free. So, I mean, the NBA and these players all throughout sports need to realize that the fans pay their salary. We want to see your best at all times, and we want you to be a superstar and act like a superstar. And that's what gave us the different gameplay, especially in the NBA 20, 30 years ago. Kobe Bryant, superstar, but you saw him on the court give 110% every time because he knew he was playing for the fans. He was playing for the love of the game. Yes, they care about the money, but I don't think he really cared about the money. He blood, sweat, and tears left it all on the court. Allen Iverson, another one, blood, sweat, and tears, left it all on the court. You could have paid him whatever. He probably still would have played basketball. Same thing with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan wasn't friends with anybody because he loved the game of basketball that much and knew that, hey, I need to block all that stuff out so I can be Michael Jordan on the court and kill you on the court. So with Anthony Edwards and some of these younger guys having that, pay me my money, I want to be a superstar. I don't want any of the scrutiny. I'm just going to lamp back here, show up, play ball, and go home. That's not what comes with the paycheck.
Right.
You get a paycheck like that, you better be prepared to bring everything and bring your best game every night. And I think that's why the game in the NBA is having this face problem, is having this gameplay problem, is because these guys know, hey, I could just show up. I'll give you 40. If I don't give you 40 that night, well, maybe I'll give it to you the next night. I'm still collecting my paycheck and I'm still going home. So do you think now that people are discussing this, do you think that that's going to maybe change some minds out there and maybe change some hearts and kind of wake guys up a little bit? Do you think this is going to have some kind of effect on them?
I think what makes it difficult is, to your point, like they're getting paid a lot of this money to go out and play basketball where, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, even for a lot of his career, they didn't get paid this amount of money thanks to the TV deals that, TV broadcasters are making customers pay in pricing to watch these exclusive games because, now like on ESPN or, what's the other carriers, TNT, NBA TV, like they are putting out a price there for customers to have to go and purchase. If I want to watch XYZ game, I got to pay all this money. And because of that, these players are afforded a much bigger opportunity because now it's billions of dollars being sent into the NBA that these players are getting a cut of. I think what makes it difficult is, how does the NBA, in terms of their ownership management, get back to a situation where the team is holding the players accountable for effort, appearances, how they carry themselves, how much money they're giving out to these contracts that aren't being honored? I think that's a big thing. But also at the same time, like, here's what's difficult is the NBA has gotten to a point where it is encouraging player empowerment, which I'm a fan of. But at the same time, is you're burning the bridge that you had to cross to get to that point. Just because I made my money, who cares about the next generation? Which is where, like, maybe you have more friends than you do competitors, and you can feel the game is a little bit different. I think what PK was talking about is the stark differences between the competitiveness of NHL in terms of All-Star and the NBA, because I don't think the NBA in general has a competition problem. I think what they have a problem is how do I get the superstars to acknowledge that every game I go out there needs to matter. And 82 games is a lot for a player like LeBron, for Steph Curry in their age. But like you look at, Joel Embiid, who should in some respects play every game, but he can't, like whether it's injury or because he doesn't want to. And then that's kind of like now acknowledged and not disciplined or hold him accountable for, he signed this huge extension, but now we're going to pay him all this money to sit on the bench 80% of the games that are available, So I don't know exactly what the problem is, but I know a lot of it is from these contracts that these players are earning. That's a lot of money. No pride in your competition or your craft. So it's very easy to just, this is my job, I'm going to go home and do other things, because there's so much opportunity for off the court stuff, for branding, and I want to own this company, I want to do that. Now they have the funds to do that. NBA is no longer their main source of income because of these opportunities that, ironically enough, the NBA has afforded them.
Right.
But I would also say too, like the argument of like, what is wrong with the competitiveness on the All-Star level? The players need to be the ones that buy in. And I get annoyed with this when like you hear Kevin Durant that's kind of like throws a shot that says, well, then we should cancel the thing because no one's happy. And it's like, it's not that no one's happy. It's just, we're asking you to be more competitive than a layup line. You won't be, but in another interview, you complain about how unfun the All-Star game is and why you don't understand why it's not competitive anymore. Well, I hate to break it to you, but you guys control the competitiveness. You would be the answer to that equation. So I think that's the problem, is some of these players just aren't self-aware of, they can fix the issues because they hold the answers, but they're pushing it down the line, which is why no one wants to be the face. The NBA has a bad marketing side of it when it comes to the All-Star game. And now they're being questioned about how good they are compared to the NHL, which this would have never been a topic 10 years ago, because NHL is very regional. NBA is global. And for the fact that the NHL is not only representing better than the NBA, but they're making the NBA look like a poorly ran league, even though they're far more successful money-wise, fans-wise, just because of like the lack of care from the players, and the players' responses to cop an attitude, in my perspective.
Right. And, you talked about the contracts and some of those things and the money. You look at someone like SGA. SGA just got rid of his representation because he knows his Supermax deal that he can sign doesn't need to be negotiated. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need representation. He doesn't have to pay somebody to read a contract or negotiate a contract when he's going to get guaranteed money. So I think a lot of it starts there. I hope the NBA goes back when they do collective bargaining, that they can kind of get rid of these guaranteed contracts, these Supermax contracts, because again, now you have a player that is performing and he hits a certain benchmark, he's going to get some guaranteed money. He doesn't even need to negotiate his contract now. He knows he's going to get paid. Right. So why does he have to do the extra effort? What is his incentive to essentially play harder than he already does? Where you had someone like Kobe Bryant who played harder because he loved the game, not to get a Supermax contract. He made his money off the court too, but it's so disappointing because these guys are the future. They're the people that our kids look up to. And you talk about, the young generation coming up, they're watching this NBA now. What are they going to think on how you're supposed to treat people, how you're supposed to perform your job and love your craft, if they watch guys kind of just mail it in, get their check and go home? Like it's very disappointing, especially coming off the back of such a bad performance from essentially our main superstars. That's what the All-Star game is. I mean, it's essentially our best in one confined space for one game that we're supposed to go, man, this is amazing. We used to have some amazing All-Star games because you watched guys that loved their craft and that were the best at it. Now you see them, and to them, it's just, I'm going to mail it in because it's a long season. This game is boring. I don't want to make it exciting because I don't need to. I'm still going to get my Supermax contract at the end of this anyway. So let me just do this, get my couple of days off and move on. That's what our kids are watching. That's going to start affecting the money. And I think that's what it all boils down to, is the NBA is leaving TNT. So you have these sports franchises leaving these networks. The MLB is leaving ESPN, which is amazing too. So now a lot of these sports are going to go to streaming, where you're going to have to pay for it. And if you have a bad product, guys aren't going to want to pay for it and watch it. I can watch highlights anytime I want for free. Right. So why am I going to spend money to watch an inferior product? So I think ultimately nothing's going to change until it starts affecting their pocketbook, which is sad to say, because I'm hoping that this conversation with a lot of players kind of wakes them up a little bit and well, maybe they're right. We loved watching Kobe Bryant. We loved watching Michael Jordan with the attitude and the way they play the game. That's how we should play this game. See, that's not the conversation they're having. And that's what I think is disheartening to a lot of people to hear from these younger guys, is they want to hoop and go home. That's not what they're paid for.
Well, I think what makes it difficult is and I wouldn't even argue the younger guys. And what I mean by younger guys is like the high draft picks, the guys that teams are trying to actively build around. And like, I'll use like Devin Booker, for example. Kyrie Irving's a little bit more of like he plays a lot more now because he seems to be in love with Dallas. But like Kevin Durant, LeBron, we keep referring to, Curry. These are all players that have been in the league for so long that they have earned all these balloon contracts. But then you look at like some more or less role players that don't really need $45 million a year, but because of these TV deals, that's the contract that they get. Those are the ones that I get concerned with. But I would also put the blame on the main ones. Again, like your top 10 players that are like setting the tone for the league to not really put an emphasis on why, like, hey, we need to compete every single day. Like Kawhi Leonard, I think, is probably the example of like a superstar that got paid that has no care of whether or not that he wants to be the face of a franchise, face of the NBA, literally the epitome of I'm just collecting a check and I'm going to go home. And that's that. At least Jokic is marketable in some respect. Kawhi is not. But I think what makes this difficult is there's going to be a lockout probably when this round of collectioning bargaining ends. And I'm afraid to see what the NBA has, or the NBA players, I'll say, have put themselves in a certain position, because I remember a lockout. I want to say it was in 2011 or 2012. And I want to say there was a lockout that lasted a really long time. And a lot of it was behind contract lengths, money, and all that stuff. And that was fought tooth and nail hard. And now to come forward, whenever collectioning bargaining starts again, now they might actually lose a lot of that share. And these NBA owners are a lot richer than these NBA players. They can afford to have this season be on hold for however long, and they don't need to pay these NBA players. It's going to hurt the lesser of known players rather than the top echelon ones, just because like these owners can afford it. And that's going to suck, because now what is it going to look like for the future of the NBA, especially with like comes to negotiation, free agency, trades, all this stuff. It's going to be a trickle down effect. And I don't want to say it's the start of the end for the NBA, but I think it's going to set the league back because of what it'll do for players and owners. Because, you know, the fact that we're having this conversation about they're getting paid too much money to sit on the bench is a tough argument to make for either side. So,
right. And it's not even the sitting on the bench part. It's what comes with the job. It's,
right.
you know, when you are a super max player, that comes with expectations. And the expectation is you are going to give me blood, sweat, and tears. I'm spending $80 to $1,000 on a ticket to go watch you play basketball. I'm spending $10 a month or a year to stream you and watch you play basketball. And you're making all that money. I expect to see the very best of you and then some, because you know, just getting that little bit is one thing. It's getting the extra, effort. It's doing all the intangible things that you saw with the all-time greats, because they weren't making this kind of money. They were still doing well, but they played the game for pride. They played the game because they hated the guy next to them, or they hated the guy, you know, across, you know, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson hated each other during when they were on the court playing against each other. Michael Jordan hated everybody, hated guys on his own team. So like, you know, that is all gone now. It's all washed. So if you're getting paid $200 million, I need to say your best. And it's tough. And it is crazy that we are having this kind of discussion, because in some aspects it is true. I mean, you saw this weekend with our best in one area, and just the effort wasn't there. You know, just the participation wasn't there. Guys are killing LeBron right now for sitting out of the game. He could have, you know, bowed out, you know, few days before, and somebody else could have got his spot that was more deserving. They're even talking about, you know, they're bringing up 20 years ago when LeBron first started, how he never went into a dunk contest. He never kind of did those extra things that put Jordan on the map. You want to compare him to Jordan, but Jordan did these things. Jordan played in the dunk contest. Jordan went all out in the All-Star game. LeBron never did any of that. And he's kind of gotten beaten up. As great as he is, as amazing a career as he has, he still gets criticized for a lot of the decisions he's made throughout his career. And I'm wondering if that sometimes has that ripple effect where you get these young guys in the league now going, well, LeBron James didn't play in the dunk contest. Why should I? LeBron, he's been here 20 plus years. He can jump ship. He can go to the team he wants to go to. He can create his own team. He can be La GM, like you said before. So it's like, okay, I want LeBron power. I want LeBron money and LeBron power. So I wonder if that has a little bit of an effect on the NBA now too.
I think it does in a sense of like a lot of these NBA players now in almost any sort of stature. And I would say from like the ones that we may say are like middle tier in terms of popularity all the way up to like the quote unquote faces that we would recognize. I think LeBron James has given them a blueprint on how to build your business and your brand while you play and how to be marketable and all that stuff. And the only reason why I bring that up is because at least I remember that you would get like a shoe deal with Nike or Adidas or Reebok, and that was your off the court thing. But the NBA was your main thing, and that's what you're known for. I think, and again, and I'll revert back to social media, the fact that LeBron James is able to build a brand, a business, the way that he does, the way that he makes his money, being the first active, billionaire player in the NBA ever because of how he conducts his brand and his business while playing, I think is what NBA players are following. And some of them don't understand the power that comes with, because LeBron, night in and night out, 40 years of age, put up another 40-point game, and he's still very competitive. It's not like he's, missing games. I think if anything, he's missed less than 10 games the whole year, and he's been, as good as he's ever been. And he probably could play like 3 more years at this level comfortably, but you look at other players like, James Harden or Joel Embiid. I don't see how they would have that fire, but yet they're willing to build a business and make a name for themselves, make off the court money, but yet they're not going to put the work in on the court like LeBron is doing. And I think that's what makes it tough, is like he gave the blueprint, but not everyone has the same attitude, the same drive to make both things work. And even still, LeBron James is known for his on the court presence than off the court, even though he's made most of his fortune off the court. He's LeBron James, the basketball player, not LeBron James this, LeBron James that. He is the king because he's able to be on the court. Other NBA players are just taking that blueprint, but not respecting that he still did it on the court.
Right. It's a fascinating subject. I think we can sit here all night and talk about it too. There's just so much emotion wrapped up into it too. And I think that's what makes this that much of a hot button topic. Because when you start questioning guys' dedication and work ethic, it gets a little heated. And I think that's why, you saw some of the comments from Kevin Durant and some of the other players is, when you get those reporters questioning your work ethic, you tend to want to get a little salty. I don't like when people question my work ethic either.
Yeah.
When you're given, 110%. So, but this is going to be interesting to see moving forward. And I think this is all going to come to a head during that next collective bargaining agreement. Because I think all these little bits and pieces, they're going to collect it and go, guys, this is the product we have. It's going to start costing us money. We got to fix it. And one of the ways we're going to fix it is we're going to start taking money out of your pocket. So, the answer to every question in the world right now is always about money. So, again, we can sit here all night, man. Cody, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you being here with me, man. We got a power hour in. I love it. 3 from deep on Saturday here. So, please, before I get you out of here, let everybody know where they can find you, man.
Yeah, again, man, really grateful for the invite and love the conversation, man. You're right. We can go all night. But if you guys want to get more Drew Code Sports Talk, we're on YouTube. So not only do you go to our page, but subscribe here so that way we can get them to 500 and beyond. But follow us on Drew Code Sports Talk, available on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, TikTok, you name it, we're on it, but it's all at Drew Code Sports Talk.
Yeah, check him out, guys. Cody and those guys doing some awesome things. So I appreciate you, Code. We will do this again, man. So
Can't
thank
wait.
you very much. You have a great weekend, and I'll catch you later, man.
Be safe, y'all. Thank you.
See you. All right. Thank you guys for watching. What a great episode here. Please drop me some comments. Let me know what you think, man. This is such a hot button topic right now. The face of the NBA. It's amazing. I think, again, we could sit here all night long and talk about it. So like and subscribe. This is Jason Colenso, 3 from Deep. I appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you so much. We will catch you at another time. At another place. We'll actually see you on Monday. So thank you guys very much. Have a great weekend. Peace.